Hi y'all, it's Andrea over at Sewspire.com, and I'm really excited to take this adventure with you today. We are revisiting a duffel bag tutorial which I designed a couple years back. I'll link to it in the notes for you. I had this idea of how I could really simplify the construction process, but I had only worked through it in my mind, so I was not sure if it was actually going to work out as I'd hoped. I'm happy to tell you it did. The bag came together. It's really darling. I don't have anything inside of it right now, so it's, true duffel bag style, kind of floppy there. But it is a really sweet bag that's perfect for overnight trips. The kids will love one of these. We got a zip top. The sides are fully encased and the interior is nicely lined. I'll talk to you about some additional design elements as we work through this. The actual instructional content was recorded without me knowing if it was going to work or not, and there were a couple obstacles along the way, but I worked it out and I'm so glad I did. I really like the bag, and there will be a design board for this project. I'll link to that down in the notes as well. I want to mention I'm having a sale in my Etsy pattern shop. If you purchase any 3 patterns, you will receive 40% off your entire order. So please do take advantage of that savings while you can. The link will be down in the description for you. As we sew together, I'm going to give you the pattern measurements if you'd like those all in one spot with step-by-step instructions. Go ahead and pick up the design board for yourself. I'm committed to making a design board for every tutorial that I produce in 2021. So shall we get started? Okay, so the first thing I want to do is craft the handles for this bag, and I am going to lengthen those just a pinch from the original. So I cut mine 6 inches wide by 26 inches long. There are 2 of them, and I am going to incorporate 3 rows of stitching on each handle so they have a nice sturdy ribbed look to them. And so I'm using my standard Sewspire strap making method, whereby I press the material in half long ways, open that up, bring those outer edges inward to meet on that center press line, fold that over again and press one more time. For this strap, I have inserted a 3-inch wide strip of warm and natural quilt batting. I like the warm and natural quilt batting because it is the right loft. It's 100% cotton. It washes beautifully. It sews beautifully. But you are welcome to use any kind of interfacing or batting that you prefer for your handles. And so I typically start stitching down that open edge first so I can get everything secure and it doesn't shift. And so I'm going to run 1 row of stitching down that open edge, another row along the folded edge, and then 1 right down the center. For this project, I am using a 3.0 stitch length, a 90-14 needle, and I have some pretty blue variegated thread in the machine. And then after I finish stitching, what I like to do with the straps that have the batting in them is give it a good steam press to sink those stitches. Okay, so you're going to need to prepare 2 of the straps. Then the next thing that we're going to prep is the exterior zipper gusset. And so that measures 5 by 18 inches long. I am using a woven kind of home decor weight material. It is 44 inches wide and it is a little thinner than traditional home decor fabric. If you wanted to work with a quilt weight cotton, that would be totally fine. I have all the exterior pieces for this project backed with a warm and natural batting. And so again, this piece is 5 by 18, and there are 2 of those. I just want to run a row of stay stitching down one long edge, and that's just at a 1/4 inch. You don't have to adjust the stitch length or anything. I just want to secure the fabric to the batting so nothing shifts. And then along that edge where you stitched, go ahead and fold that edge over about 5/8 of an inch and press. And because I'm using batting, I'm going to go ahead and put a couple clips on that while it's still hot to hold that press in. And then I'm going to set these 2 zipper panels aside for a few moments so we can talk about the exterior body panels. So there are 2 side panels which measure 10 by 10, and those are also backed with a warm and natural quilt batting. And then there are 3 panels which measure 18 by 10, and those are backed with the warm and natural quilt batting. One will become the base, and one will become the front, and one will become the rear of this bag. So we're going to start off with the standard T method, which will require the front exterior body panel and the 2 sides, and you're going to position the sides, right sides facing on the right and the left hand of that front exterior panel. And then using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, join those by running a row of stitching down each 10-inch side. Okay, so that creates the tri-folding panel, which you all should be familiar with. We'll set that aside for a moment, and then we're going to create our double folding panel, which is comprised from the rear exterior panel and the base, and you just position those right sides facing and then stitch down the 18-inch edge to join. For this entire project, I'll be using the 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then I'm going to bring back over the tri-folding panel, position that right on the table there, fully extended, and I do want you all to be able to see this here. So there's a tri-folding panel fully extended on my cutting mat, and then I'm going to take the double panel and position that right at center and align the base of that front panel with the long edge of the base panel. And I'm just stitching seam to seam. Seam to seam is different than end to end. I'm going to put this up on the machine deck and feel where that bump is, and then sink my needle right at that seam. I'll back stitch to reinforce, and then I'm going to stitch all the way until the second bump or seam and stop and back stitch. Okay, so this gives us the giant T, hence the T method, and most of you know how to get here. Now we're going to modify this by attaching one of the zipper panels to the top center of our T and one to the bottom of our T, hence the extended T method. All right, so where the clips are is going to be the area where the zipper is installed. So do not attach that end. Turn it over, right sides facing, and position that on top. So I currently am at the bottom of my T, which is fine. So I'm going to position that along that bottom edge, and I'm going to stitch 5/8 of an inch to 5/8 of an inch. So I'm leaving the seam allowance unstitched. All right, so you can mark it if you need. I'm just going to ballpark it, come in 5/8 of an inch, sink the needle, and start sewing. I will back stitch to reinforce, and then I'll stop 5/8 of an inch short. Okay, so I have added the extension to the bottom of the T. It's probably easier for you to see on this side here. And now I'm going to do the same thing and position the remaining zipper frame or zipper panel right sides facing at the top center of my T. And this time I have the bumps or the seams, so I don't have to guess where to start and stop. I'm just going to start stitching at the seam and stop stitching at the opposite seam, which is, in your view, finger to finger, and I will reinforce at the beginning and the end. Okay, so now I have something that looks like this here. And I'll turn that around so you can see the actual seams. Okay, so the next step is to position the handles on this. If you wanted, you could attach the handles at the seam between the zipper panel and that front and rear panel, but I do like to bump those handles down a couple inches so that the weight of the bag is distributed and we do not put unnecessary continuous stress on the top of the bag. And so in order to position these handles so that the raw edges aren't showing, you're going to have to almost sew them upside down so that we can fold them up and encase that seam with another row of stitching. Now I am going to have to just guess what would be an appropriate position for these handles, because again, this is my first time making this design, but a good ballpark for you will be approximately 3 inches in from your side seam of your front panel and approximately 2 inches down. But before I stitch these in place, I'm just going to clean up these raw edges here because that will make my life a little easier when I'm stitching. I will have a nice straight line to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and pin these straps in place. Again, I'm coming 3 inches from the left and right hand seams and 2 inches down. This is worth it to measure because you would not want your handles crooked on this particular bag. It would probably be pretty obvious. So my handle now is inverted on that exterior front panel, and I'm just going to run a row of stitching, and then I'll flip the strap up and make this first stitch just a 1/4 inch from that raw edge. And you will absolutely want to back stitch and forward stitch several times because these are the handles. Okay, then once you have that handle secure, then you can flip that up and fold that so that it hides that raw seam there. And I'm just going to put another pin in that, and I will bring it over to you so you can see what that looks like. I really wanted to use this navy blue polka dot for this, but I recognize that it does make it hard for you to see the stitches, but I wanted to craft a bag that I would like and use. Okay, so right now I have the handle positioned on the bag, and there's just one row of stitching holding it in place. I am going to now stitch across here using the 5/8 of an inch seam allowance to encase that raw edge and reinforce the handle. I will be back stitching and forward stitching several times so that I know that handle is nice and secure. I see an opportunity here where you could attach some hardware in that loop, and you could have a D-ring there that you could attach other things to, accessories. You could just make it a decorative piece and attach a little tassel or something, or a little charm, but there's definitely a design opportunity there with these handles. Okie doke, so I have one of my handles in place, and that is on the front side of the bag, and I know it's the front because that's where the side panels are. So now I'm going to turn my T upside down, and I am going to install my handles on that rear panel, which is the second panel down. Your first panel is for your zipper, and the second panel down is for your handles. And so I do not have sides on this, so I'm going to need to bump in 3 5/8 inches because I was measuring before on the opposite side 3 inches from the seam. So just keep that in mind and bump over the 3 5/8 and then down the 2 inches. And the handle will be inverted at this point in a U shape. 3 5/8 inches from the side and 2 inches down. And then I'm going to stitch across the raw edges with the 1/4 inch, and then flip the handle up and stitch with the 5/8 of an inch to hide that raw edge. And I almost forgot, I want to make sure that I clean up this raw edge of this handle because I don't want to see any of these little bits hanging out. Now I'm just turning that handle up. I'm going to get a pin in there to hold it in place, and then I'll come across and stitch to encase that raw edge. Okay, so now both of my handles are in place, and I'm just going to pair those up and make sure that I have them generally in the right position, and they look pretty good. And then the next step in this process is to line up the base of the side panel with the side of the base panel. And so you just fold that over and line everything up nice and straight. And then you're going to again stitch seam to seam. So you'll have to back that up to start right at that seam. And so now I have one side in place. I want to repeat that on the opposite side. So I'm just lining up the base of the side with the side of the base. And now my stage is set here. And the next step is for me to align that opposite side. And so I'm again just going to be stitching seam to seam. And then I'm going to repeat that on the remaining side. Okay, so now your bag really should be starting to take shape. You should definitely have something that's looking like a duffel bag. Go ahead and let the handles just fall towards the interior. And the next thing that you want to do is start aligning the side of that zipper panel with the side of the bag. And just go ahead and clip that in place. Make sure that you keep that top edge of that zipper panel folded over, because that's going to allow us to have a nice finished edge on that zipper. Okay, so this is what it should look like. You should only have about 5/8 of an inch of separation in between those panels. We'll be using an 18-inch sport separating zipper for this project. So it has those nice wide teeth. So your gap should be for sure less than the distance of your zipper tape, or you'll have no way to attach this, but it definitely at the minimum should be the distance of your zipper teeth. 5/8 of an inch is ideal. So now we have what looks like an inside out duffel bag without a zipper installed. So what we want to do is come across the top edge here and stitch those zipper panels in place. Use the 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, back it up onto that seam bump, start there, back stitch for all of the seams on this project to reinforce everything, and then you're going to stop sewing as soon as you hit the opposite seam. And then just go ahead and peek inside and make sure that you did capture everything, nothing shifted. It's an easy fix now if anything shifted. And then you'll go ahead and close up the opposite end. Same way. And then take a peek inside and make sure that you didn't miss anything. Okay, it's looking really good. Go ahead and leave the clips across that zipper panel. They don't have to be all the way to the edge. You might want to adjust a little bit, but 3 across there is probably sufficient to hold that seam in place. Then you can go ahead and turn that exterior right side out. And poke out your corners, trim up any loose threads. Okay, so here's what that looks like. Super duper cute. And now I have a nice insert there for the zipper with a good finished edge. So what I want to do now is craft a lining in exactly the same way, just omit the handles. For my lining, I'm using a quilt weight cotton fabric, a really pretty bird and floral print there. And so just again, I omitted the handles, but the construction process was exactly the same. Create the 3-way panel, the 2-way panel, join those to make the big T, then extend the T with the zipper panels at the top, center, and at the base. And just don't forget to fold that edge over on your zipper panels. And with the quilt weight cotton, you can press it and it stays very nice and neat. So then after you get your lining, you're going to want to fit that nice and tidy right inside of the bag. And the easiest way to do that is going to be by lining up this opening at the top, and just reuse those clips that are already in place. And then once you know you have the opening aligned, then you can reach inside and push that cotton fabric closer to the batting on the exterior, and that batting will grip that cotton fabric and hold it in place. At this point, you might definitely want to add some more clips as you start reaching inside of there and smoothing out that lining. You run the risk that you might misalign the top of this, and we would not want that to happen. Okay, then you just reach inside there and smooth out that lining. And that's one of the benefits of working with the batting, is it does grip that fabric and kind of hold everything in place. Okay, super duper cute. It's empty right now, but you can see it's definitely a darling little shape that is ideal for quick trips, like say to the gym, the yoga studio. It could make a really cute overnight bag. Kids, I think, would love this size as well, but the original intention behind sizing the bag to these dimensions was it will fit under the seat when you're traveling, be it on a bus, a train, or a plane. So that makes it perfect for travel. So now the next step here is to fit your zipper in between the lining there. So you want to slip the zipper tape in between the lining of the bag and the exterior. And I suggest that you do swap out 2 pins at this point. I have these long tulip pins and they work really great for nice thick layers, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull up a seat to do this because it is going to take some time. So we will be cutting the zipper. So go ahead and start at the zipper pull because we want to leave that zipper stop in place, especially since this is a separating zipper that I have here. So I don't want to lose that zipper stop, but I will end up having to trim from the opposite end. And so begin with the zipper stop. So for me, that's the right hand side of this bag. And I'm going to make sure that the lining does not come over the zipper teeth because that would cause the zipper to get entangled with the fabric. So just do this really slow. First, line up the lining and then peek on the top. And if everything's straight, go ahead and put in your pin. And you're going to work all the way down one side first and then stitch that zipper in place along the one side, and then you can separate it to insert it on the opposite side and it will be much easier. But before we get all the way there, I'm going to go ahead and get this in place and then talk to you about trimming this because I'm pretty certain I am going to have to trim some of this. Okay, so I'm nearing the end here, and I'm just going to line this right up with the very edge of my bag. I want to make certain that I pull the zipper pull to the right of my cut, and then just very carefully, nice and tidy, I'm going to cut off the excess from that zipper, and then I'm going to tuck that raw edge in between. So you definitely do not want to accidentally pull your zipper pull off that end, because you might struggle getting that back on. So just be super mindful of that. Okay, so here's what that looks like. The zipper is in place, and that's what it looks like on the opposite side. Now, for my own ease, I am going to go ahead and separate that zipper from this project so that I can put it up on the machine deck and get that one side in place. So with this machine, I do not have a zipper foot on it. I just have that 1/4 inch foot, but for this project, that should be just fine. And so I'm going to start sewing right up against that seam. And then the edge of my foot is aligned with the zipper teeth. I just want to go nice and slow. I want to make sure that the lining doesn't slip, the exterior doesn't slip, the zipper doesn't slip. I have it pinned very well. I'm just going to sew slow and remove one pin at a time. Okay, and it looks really good. I have successfully installed one edge of that zipper. And so now I want to go ahead just for a moment and reinstall that opposite side, because I have to make sure that that end where the zipper separates is aligned evenly so that the zipper will function properly. So just thread your zipper back on there and pull that zipper pull to about center. Be careful, don't accidentally completely unzip it, because we removed the stop at the opposite side, and that will be frustrating for you. So then just remove a few of those clips so that you can get just those first few inches of this project pinned in place. And then I would say once you have 2 pins in place, then you can go ahead and unzip the zipper. It's optional if you would like to go ahead and remove it. I am, because it's going to allow me to get a much better fit on the zipper here. And then same thing, just move down that opposite zipper tape there and align the interior, exterior with those zipper teeth. Pin it really well. Try to avoid having that interior encroach upon those teeth, because you'll run the risk of zipping up the interior and getting the zipper stuck. So we just go nice and slow. Okay, and then once you are sure that you have the lining and the exterior as you'd like, then go ahead and reattach that zipper to the bottom there and test it before you make that next stitch. And so like right here, I'm getting a little resistance there. So that tells me that that lining might be a little too close. So I'm going to go in there and adjust just a smidgen. And then I will test that again. Yeah, much better. Okay, so now I need to attach that. Oh, I did it. I unzipped that darn zipper. Boo. That stinks. Okay, I don't know for sure how to fix this. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to separate it, which might not be the best idea. Okay, I got it separated. Let's see if I can thread it back on from that end. Thank heavens I can. Okay. Oh, but it's not together, so that actually won't work. This is such a bummer, guys. This is what not to do when you're making one of these bags. So I have this little tool at home that's supposed to help me put these zipper heads back on, but I might have to go buy a new zipper. I don't think I have one here. I should have put a pin in this end to keep myself from doing that. Okay, so I got it thread back on the left-hand side. Phew! And now I can, because it's a separating zipper, I can re-engage that zipper, but I am not going to do that again. And that's a great time saver for you all because you can learn from my mistake. The separating zippers are easier to work with, thank goodness. Okay, so anyways, you can separate it and unzip it. Just don't zip it off the end and you will be okay. So it's this opposite end here with the actual zipper head on it that I need to secure to the project. So I'm just going to fit that on top of the machine there and then stitch as close as I can to that first seam and then the zipper teeth, keeping that lining and that exterior and the zipper tape all in place. Okay, now as you approach this end, you're going to need to lift up the foot, leave the needle down in the project, and just slip that zipper by that foot so you can continue to the end. Alright, and that looks pretty good. This end down here, it looks like things shifted just a bit. So I'm just going to pull out a few stitches there. I get excited now to actually have to pull out stitches because I got this gorgeous seam ripper from Isabel for Mother's Day and I like using it. So it's still new to me, so maybe one day I'll hate getting out the seam ripper again, but today I don't mind. So I'm going to have to just pull out a few of those stitches so I can realign this at this end here because I want it to be pretty on the inside. And I think this time I'm going to sew it from the underside so I can see what's happening. So I'll just realign with my stitch line there, and this will also allow me to tuck that end that I cut in there a little better. Alright, and then I just need to realign the zipper at the end there because it's a separating zipper. And oh my gosh, I did it again! What the heck? Okay, so when you do that with this zipper, open it, take out the end, get it threaded back on that right hand side, bring it down to the stopper, then tuck the end in. Do not repeat my mistake. Okay, so now we have to remedy this here at this end. or every time you use this bag, you are going to want to pull that zipper right off the top. So the cutest, easiest way to create a permanent zipper stop on this is going to be to cut out a circle, maybe like 2.5 inches in diameter, and fold it over so half of it is on the side and half of it is on the top, and then just stitch right across there, and that will hold everything in place. I will need to hunt for some darling leather to do that with. So what I think I'm going to do is just use some scrap material that I have right here and go ahead and create a fabric zipper stop. So I have a little bit left over of the blue material, and so I'm just going to cut that about 2.5 inches by, say, 5 inches should be good. And you'll need 2 of those so that the project looks balanced. So just fold those right sides facing and then stitch up the sides. One end is finished with the fold. And for this you can just use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You don't want a lot of bulk inside of these, but again, if you have a non-fraying material like leather, cork, vinyl, I would just use that. Okay, and then once you get these little zipper stoppers crafted, go ahead and turn those right sides out, poke out those corners really well, and then give it a good press. And while you're pressing them, turn those raw edges inward about 1/2 inch so that everything is finished on all 4 sides. And you want to try to achieve a true square shape with this. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it will just make it look neater and more in proportion. And so my little squares are 2 by 2, and I have 2 of those. And so I want to position those so that they act like a little clamp at the end of that bag. And I'm going to need to stitch through all of these layers. That is a lot to ask of most machines, so go very slow. And I am not going to stitch through the zipper because I don't want to break a needle. I'm just going to hand crank it. If I meet any resistance, I'm going to hop over the zipper and resume sewing on the opposite side. So there was the resistance. Alright, so my zipper stop is now secure on the end that would potentially give me problems. Yay! And I can see here again how this little stop on the end could become a design element. You could put a nice 2-inch D-ring there, and you could easily attach your removable messenger strap. So that's like one of the reasons why I love this kind of free flow design work, because had I not run into this problem with the zipper and unzipped it off the end twice, I would not now have this point where I could attach hardware and improve the functionality of this design. Another route that it could have taken was give up and get just completely frustrated with that silly zipper, and then again I still wouldn't have ended up here. So I can see how this is awesome sauce, and you can have the removable messenger strap. It looks pretty good, crafted out of the like fabric, but again, the leather accents or vegan leather or cork would be really fun as well. Okay, so just so both sides match, and I have the opportunity if I wanted to attach hardware to either side, I'm going to go ahead and fold over this end as well and stitch it in place. If you do not think your machine can handle all of these layers, you could use rivets here if you have a press for those. You could also trim away all the excess fabric from those side seams before you fit the interior, and that will reduce that bulk quite a bit for you. If you have a heavy duty machine, I am personally sewing on a Juki TL 2000 QI, and it's doing pretty good with this. I think you'll be fine. Just go really slow and hand crank over the zipper. All right, I made it through there. That was pushing my luck, I think, here a couple times. The needle was striking the plate there. So if at all possible, trim up those seams really well and use a single layer material like the leather or cork or vegan leather for those little tabs there. You could also reinforce the tabs like with a layer of like 808 and go with like a cotton fabric, but I think just by trimming up the seams that would help you a lot. Okay, so again, I have a super cute duffel bag here that I can safely zip and unzip without getting frustrated, and it is fully lined with a beautiful fabric in there. I did not integrate any pockets into this design, but you absolutely could. When you're building out the panels before you start the T method construction process, add pockets to the side panels, to the front, to the rear panels. Absolutely no problem there. I just wanted to see if this extended T method of construction worked. It did. I'm really happy with how the zipper was installed, especially considering I've never done it like this before, so that makes me happy. The next point of consideration for you might be to add a second row of stitching so that the handle is reinforced again on the exterior, and you can stitch right through your interior if you want to do that. I don't think I'm going to, because I don't want to risk messing it up at this point. A rivet might be a better idea. I think when the bag's loaded up, this will probably be just fine. I mean, it's a very cute, fun summer bag. Let me give you the measurements on this in case you're trying to determine if it will hold your content. So it's 17 inches across the base, 8.5 inches tall, and almost 9 inches deep. So I hope you enjoyed the project. I think it was a really fun sew. I'm excited to load it up and use it in that first tutorial, which I'll link to down below if you want an alternate construction method. I gave the bag away, so I'm pretty excited I don't have to give this one away and I can use it. We're going to be traveling at the end of the month, and so this will definitely come in handy. And since I stopped making custom orders, I don't get to make as many bags, so this is really fun for me to make them and keep them for myself. If you enjoyed the project, I would love it if you'd give this video a thumbs up, and please do subscribe to the channel so that you receive notifications when I publish new content. Right now my schedule is Tuesdays, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will be back next week with another fun, inspired sewing project for you. Until then, as always, please know the creative genius in me will be celebrating the creative genius in you. I hope you all have a beautiful week. Thank you so much for sewing with me.